Hello, everyone. My name is Tiara Davis, and today we will be talking about multicultural competence, creating inclusive spaces. So, why did I choose to pursue this work for my research topic? First of all, I am drawn to representations of diversity. I really enjoy reading stories about how people of color have overcome their challenges, what the oppression looks like. I'm just really taken by those stories. Second, I was shocked by the data revealed in the case studies while reading the multicultural counseling session or section or chapter this semester. It seemed as if specifically African Americans were kind of pushed aside or cast aside or kind of given a secondhand sort of counseling interaction, and I felt very strongly about that because I continuously saw that throughout the about four different times. I was like, why is it habitual? Why is it a cyclical thing? I keep seeing that people of color or African Americans rather are not getting the treatment that they deserve, that they are entitled to. And so what I realized is that the counselors within those situations did not have the technique, they did not have the skills, and because of that, I decided to pursue that as my research project. Also, inclusivity is important to me because of my previous work. So the problem, I've already kind of touched on it, but today we're going to be assessing the lack of training and understanding for multicultural spaces and developing techniques. People just don't know. They don't they have, or I don't want to say people, counselors just don't know. They are unaware of how to engage with people of color. They don't have the technique. They haven't done the they don't have the history. They don't have the knowledge. And so because they don't know, it's difficult for them to successfully interact with people of color to do the counseling work. So some of the problems that are currently persisting, we see lack of counselor cultural self-awareness, lack of counselor cultural knowledge. You're not aware of yourself, and you don't have the content knowledge of the other cultures to again successfully engage within that interaction. Lack of culturally appropriate counseling skills. The skills that you need to interact with people of color might be different than what you use with people who look like you. And then there's language barriers, client distrust and fears, racial identity development, lack of multicultural counseling training. All right, so there is work to be done, and this is the framework that we're using or that we need to use to get there. So ideas to think about as we're moving through the content. These are some of the things that I want you to think about. Multicultural competence. What is it? How does it perform? Why is it necessary? What are the impacts of multiculturally competent counselors? And how can we protect the interests of our clients? All right. So background and current status. So the American society is rapidly diversifying. Essentially, we were a community of just European Americans, and now we are Native Americans, Asian Americans, Mexican Americans. And as we are growing and developing, the counseling profession has to grow and develop to adapt to that. In the formative years of the counseling profession, cultural diversity was virtually ignored. There was no place for it, and because of that period of time where cultural or diverse people were ignored, there is a gap in knowledge and training. And essentially, counselors are playing catch up to figure out what to do to meet that need or how to do it, how to exist within those circles. Herring argues the increasing diversity of the United States population has mandated that all mental health personnel increase their multicultural awareness and competence if they are to be effective and ethical in the services they provide. You cannot specialize in one racial background or one racial group. You must diversify your technique. So, multicultural competence. Um, I really like this definition. I felt like it was beautifully written. And I also feel that you need to master multicultural awareness in order to get to multicultural counseling. So, here, I won't read it in its entirety, but the author is telling you to be in the know. Understanding sensitivity and appreciation of the history, values, experiences, and lifestyles of minority and groups. All right. So understand, be in the know their history, know their culture. All right. Um, and then once you've mastered that, you can move on to multicultural counseling that suggests even in the counseling setting, differences between the client and the counselor should be recognized. Okay? The astute multicultural counselor is aware of differences between himself and the client without wanting the client to be like him. All right. The next frame that we're going to look at is going to highlight what it looks like for a counselor that kind of counsels with the vision of self or the vision of that highlights the perspective of self above all. And we know this as the culturally encapsulated counselor. And just as its name suggests, it is a person who has a one-sided tunnel vision viewpoint with stereotypes and biases that kind of prohibits him or her from existing in multiple circles. You can only exist in the circle that you agree with, or that you are aligned to, so to speak. So these counselors, by assuming that their view is the only legitimate one, are trapped in one way of thinking and are bound by their own narrow perspectives. They ignore evidence that challenges their way of thinking, locked into stereotypical thinking. So the words that jump out to me are trapped, bound, narrow, ignore, and locked. All of these words continue to reiterate cagey thought. And when you're thinking about these types of counselors, they are locked and trapped in their own way of thinking and are not allowing anything else to substantiate or to open up their mind so that they can see things in a different way. It is that one and only true way. And because of that, they can't meet the needs, which is why they can't meet the needs of other people that are not in that box, which is why it is problematic. All right. So let's look at case study 4, which we've all looked at during the semester. So if you guys remember Carl, he was a white counselor in a predominantly African American school, and what we saw was that Carl was having trouble in the school because he had a lot of negative interactions with the African American males at his institution, and he referred to them as being unprepared, lazy, and inarticulate. Historically, these are words associated with African American people to degrade their character. And usually this is the stereotype that these are the kinds of people that they are. All right. And so he says it without any substantial data. This is who these people are. I cannot help them. And his supervisor passively supports his biased views because she doesn't coach him through it. She simply says, oh, we can just give him to the doctoral student without perhaps pushing him to dispel those stereotypes and dispel those biases. Potentially she could have them as well. And so because of this, the students don't have their needs met because there is a wall up, because he sees them a certain way and he can't overcome that. And the counselor doesn't help him overcome that. So what are some of the ethical considerations associated with this particular situation? So standard A.2a, do not condone or engage in discrimination based on age, color, culture, disability, ethnic group, gender, race. And we see that both the counselor and both counselors engaged in this interaction. Carl did not engage with the African American males because of the biases and stereotypes that he had about African Americans. Standard A2 will actively attempt to understand the diverse cultural backgrounds. That did not happen from neither of them. They pushed them aside. Standard F1F, counselors who offer clinical supervision services are adequately prepared in supervision methods and techniques. If the counselor was prepared, had the necessary techniques and skills, she would have effectively counseled Carl through that situation. And lastly, who supervise the counseling services of others, take reasonable measures to ensure the counseling service provided to clients are professional. That did not happen. He was having negative interactions with the students, and he was virtually ignoring them because he could not be interested in investing in the time to getting to know the students or getting down to their level. All right. Some of the legal considerations of this particular case: discriminatory acts are punishable by law. And I have 3 different clauses or laws here that demonstrate that. So we have the Due Process Clause of the 5th Amendment, Due Process and Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, Due Process and Equal Protection Clause of the 1st Amendment, all of which were instituted to protect against racial injustice and equality. And both counselors were in violation of all 3 clauses/laws. All right. So who else is plagued by this lack of competence? It's not just counseling detriment, but it is a global phenomenon where people simply struggle to interact with people of color. But in my research, I found that psychologists, therapists, educators, and social workers have to do the same work that we have to do as counselors to dispel their biases when it comes to working with people of color. So what can we do? It's important that we equip ourselves with the necessary skills to combat multicultural incompetence. We have to do the work. And so how do you do that? You stay informed. So here are some of the advocacy processes needed to address the barriers that impede access, equity, and success for clients. First, knowledge about the histories of cultures other than your own. You have to be in the know. I said that. Understanding of the implications and ongoing problems of racism, oppression, and stereotyping and their impact on diverse clients. All right. It's not important for you to just know their history, but you also need to know the current history or the current status of the clients that you're working with, what is going on around them, because that can substantiate why they feel that the way that they feel. So again, staying in the know, doing the homework, staying current, staying relevant. Knowledge of the language and slang of other cultures and the effect of your own communication style on diverse clients. Language is a huge barrier and can be very offensive. If you are speaking with intense jargon and slang, academic slang, you could be potentially putting up a wall and not bringing it down to the level where people of color can understand. Not that you have to, but just being mindful of the way that you speak and how it's interpreted by other cultures. Knowledge of aspect of traditional counseling approaches that may be inappropriate for counseling clients from diverse cultures. Certain techniques won't work with certain communities, so you have to figure out what techniques work with what communities. Professional expertise that is relevant to people in other cultures. Do the work to develop your craft. Benefits of inter-organizational collaboration. So the Association for Multicultural Counseling and Development recognized the significance of cultural sensitivity and understanding in counseling and created the multicultural counseling competencies to guide interpersonal counseling and interactions with attention to culture, ethnicity, and race. There are spaces out there for you to collaborate with others, to do the work, to get the knowledge, to get the content. So this organization is working vigorously to do that work for you so that you can attend sessions to be able to perfect your craft. And so investing in this work ensures that clients of all racial backgrounds have safe space to grow. It is hard work. It is hard work to dispel our stereotypes, to dispel our biases, to overcome those things and essentially recraft our perspective, but it's the work that we need to do to meet the client need. Benefits of and strategies for interagencies. Counselors, again, are able to meet the needs of the diverse clients by investing in the work required to learn about their culture and dispel their biases. There are trainings available. I was able to look up a few that are not that are as close as local as we can get, but the cultural competency training for social work and counseling, and then the commitment to diversity awareness and social justice training on the 25th of September and October 1st. These are the kinds of organizations and the kinds of trainings and workshops that we want to attend as a community to develop our techniques when working with these types of communities. Okay, and I get it, and I've already said this, but this work is hard. This work is taxing, but it's also rewarding, and we have to be able to take care of ourselves. So find out what self-care strategies work for you and use those to unwind. For me, I enjoy podcasts, braiding my hair, and going for walks. That's the work that I do. So figure out what works for you in order to take care of yourself. And lastly, I want to leave you with empowered, not disempowered. We are doing this work, we are investing in this because we want our clients to be empowered at all times and not leave our offices feeling empty. And how do we do that? We do the work. We sweat and we do the work. I thank you for your time and I look forward to hearing your feedback.